Hi you guys, we are here today to talk about my birth story. We are gonna get into the nitty gritty of what happened, how it all felt. Let's get into it. So our story starts on April 8th. We had just had Easter dinner at my husband's parents' house. This was our second out of third Easter dinner. We had one the next day as well, but as you know, I did not make that dinner because I was in labor. Now we are gonna be talking about birth, so there's obviously some like TMI details that go into this, as well as like talking about things like bodily fluid and functions. So if you are a squeamish person or that's something you're not interested in, definitely just hop off this video because I'm not going to be editing myself too much. That being said, on April 8th, earlier in the day, I was having some discharge that was like very aggressive and quite watery compared to what I was normally used to. I literally said to my husband, Graham, I was like, I kind of feel like I peed my pants. I know I didn't. I was like, I feel like we'll probably be giving birth soon because discharge TMI is getting like very aggressive. Whatever, we went about our day. If you do want to see what that day looks like, I will tag my vlog from that day in the description for you guys because I had been vlogging every single day leading up to giving birth, which is kind of really cool that I have that video now because I had obviously no clue what was coming that evening. We went to Easter dinner and I was talking about it with my mother-in-law and she was like, oh, like, are you sure your water might not have broken? Because like you could have a leak. It did not even occur to me that that could be what it is. So I was thinking about it and I had been feeling a little off that day, just like some soft signs of labor that I didn't realize were soft signs of labor until obviously in hindsight, but I was drinking so much water, like aggressive amounts of water, having like some back aches, some cramping. However, I was in so much discomfort the entire third trimester that I just thought it was the regular old pelvic pain. So yeah, so I just thought it was all just regular third trimester things. In hindsight, I was definitely probably having like some light contractions at dinner and just thought it was him moving, making me feel uncomfortable because I was like quite uncomfortable most of my third trimester. Later that night though, when we both got home, we crawled into bed, put a movie on. My husband fell asleep pretty quickly. And I was sitting in bed and moved and another like huge gush of what I then thought, might be my water. That's kind of when I put two and two together that like, okay, maybe my mother-in-law is right. Maybe it is my water and I've like slowly been leaking all day. I called my midwife and I was kind of letting her know what was happening. I was like, I'm not sure if my water broke. And she's like, are you having any contractions? And I was like, no, like, not really. Like, I don't think so, maybe. And she's like, okay, maybe you're just like cramping a little. Essentially, like you would know if you were having contractions. Take some Gravel, try to get some sleep. We'll meet at the clinic in the morning and I'll test you to make sure that it's not your water that broke. If it is, we'll obviously take it from there. Obviously call me if you end up having contractions or anything, but you know, try to rest. Not like 30 minutes later, I have popped 2 Gravel because I'm like, I need to sleep, I'm exhausted. At this point, it's about 12:30 at night, and that's when unmistakably the contractions start. I had like one and was like, ooh, okay, I think this is a contraction. Enough time had passed, maybe like 8 minutes. Ooh, getting another one. This is when they start getting spaced out like 6-ish minutes apart. I had probably been contracting for like about an hour at that point. My husband was still sleeping. I didn't want to wake him up yet because I knew like you could be having false contractions and I didn't want to freak him out until I knew for a fact we were legit in labor. That lasted about like an hour and a half, maybe an hour of having contractions where I'm sitting actually in this exact position on the ball. I'm sitting on this ball right now and I have a contraction that I cannot not make noise during. I'm like sitting on the edge of the bed and I'm groaning and my husband finally wakes up and he's like, oh, like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, like I'm having contractions. And he's like, should we call the midwife? And I was like, I've already called her. I just need to time them now. And the thing is, there was like that 1 hour where I could bear them. However, they were quite uncomfortable. And then basically from the get, my contractions were 6 to 3 minutes apart, lasting a minute long. Now you need your contractions to be 4 minutes apart, lasting 1 minute long for 1 hour before you can like go to the hospital or get like checked. So I have a midwife, which means that she would come here, check and see how dilated I am to make sure that we're not going to the hospital if we don't need to be going to the hospital. So the contractions are legit excruciating. They are not lasting a minute and 4 minutes apart for a full hour. Like they're fluctuating, but they're fluctuating between like 5 minutes, 4 minutes. Some of them are 3 minutes apart and then they go back to 6 minutes, like fluctuating enough that it's not time to call the midwife yet. However, they are hard and fast from the beginning. I am suffering, you guys. And I had read somewhere squeezing a comb can help distract from early labor contractions. And you best believe that comb was my emotional support comb throughout labor until I got the epidural. I legit would freak out if I did not know where the comb was. My hands were purple. I had little comb marks on them. The fact that I didn't have bruises on my hands the next day is actually still astounding to me. The only other thing I'd say that worked was laboring on the toilet, which of course TMI, but how do we describe the feeling of contractions? For me, one of the huge things, and a lot of people agreed on my TikTok video where I was talking about what contractions feel like, you feel like your butt is gonna just like fall out of your body. So much pressure. It's like, it feels like the baby's coming out of your butt. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. So laboring on the toilet where you can relax all your muscles and you can relax enough that if you do poo, it's fine because you're sitting on the toilet. TMI, but it works. We are nearing like 5 a.m. when my contractions are at 4 minutes apart, lasting a minute long for an hour. So we call the midwife. By the time we like talk to her, call her, she gets here, it's like roughly 6 a.m. And she checks me and she's like, "You're only 2 centimeters dilated." I'm like, how am I only 2 centimeters dilated? I'm in so much pain. These hurt way more than I thought they were ever gonna hurt. Basically tells us, she's like, we need your contractions to just get more intense from here on out. They're spaced out properly, but they need to be more intense. Graham is like, how do we track that? And she's like, oh, you'll just know the way that Natalie acts, like that they're getting more intense. And in my head, I'm like, I can't do more intense. Like I cannot do it. These are so intense and I'm in so much pain. I just was like, give me the epidural. I literally cannot do this anymore. So she's like, the other option is to go to the hospital, and there is a type of like, I can't remember the name of the drug, but essentially it's a shot that they could give me that would help dull the contractions so I could come back home, sleep it off a little bit. Then she would come back and check me and see where we're at. Yeah, okay, let's do that. Let's do that option because I am struggling. So we pack the car up with our hospital bags, like just in case, with full intention of coming back home. We get to the hospital, we meet my midwife there, and she's gonna kind of start the process so she can administer these drugs. And she was like, okay, like let's just get you in a bed. And she's like, I'll kind of take my time a bit because I'm gonna check you again. And if you're like more dilated, then we can talk about maybe admitting you. That way you don't have to go back home. Wonderful, that sounds great. She checks me again and I'm now at 3 centimeters. However, she was like, we can kind of fudge this because like you're close to 4. Let's admit you because I'm sure if like I were to send you home, probably staying there for like 30 minutes and then coming back to the hospital. Bless your soul, because the thought of driving back home, I was like, I can't do it. This is roughly 7 a.m. when they admit me at the hospital. So they get me set up in a room. I asked for the epidural right away. My midwife is like, let's get you the epidural. She's like, the anesthesiologist just got called into something, but I will make sure he gets here as soon as possible. At about 9 p.m., she's like, okay, he has an opening. He's gonna be here like super quick, and this guy's really, really good. So he'll be super fast. It'll be like super painless. So the anesthesiologist comes in. I knew I wanted the epidural more than I wanted to feel this pain of the contractions. However, I still was afraid to get the epidural. It's like a needle going in your spine. They throw a catheter in there. I don't know, the whole logistics of it did kind of scare me. He starts doing the epidural and it legit feels like a little bee sting, maybe. Super painless in my opinion. Then I had one contraction after that where I could feel it. The next one was quite dull, and then the one after that could not feel it. I then got to nap, drink some Starbucks, chill. So after napping and kind of relaxing a bit, my midwife checks me again and I'm now 4 centimeters dilated. I hadn't had a ton of progress. At this point, it's 11 a.m. So we're still just trying some things out. I've got like the peanut ball in between my legs. And then an hour after that, my midwife checks me again and I'm at 5 centimeters and she decides to break my water to kind of speed the process along a bit because my contractions were getting less close together. So she breaks my water and then she talks to me about starting Pitocin. I was totally fine with because I couldn't obviously feel the Pitocin contractions and I just knew it was going to kind of help speed things along, keep my contractions regular. So that's what we decided to do. I want to say also that I just chose a care provider that I really trusted. My entire pregnancy, I really trusted my midwives and really valued their opinions and everything. So I had no reason not to trust them throughout the birthing process as well. While some of these choices I made with the help of my birthing team might not have been the decisions you would have made, I was doing what I had to do in the moment to make sure that I was safe and my baby was safe. So I'm having Pitocin contractions for a while. I was at 5 centimeters when we started Pitocin. The contractions were coming hard and fast. I had the shakes pretty aggressively at this point, which really scared my husband, even though I would look at him and I'd be like, they don't bother me. I feel totally fine. His face was like, oh my God, I'm absolutely terrified right now because you cannot stop shaking. But again, they didn't bother me like at all. At this point, it's roughly 3 p.m. I'd been laboring since midnight. It's been a long day. My midwife decides to check me again. And before they check me, the doula I had there and my midwife were both like, just like based on how your body looks right now, like we can tell your body is working very hard. We would not be surprised if you were entering transition right now, which is like 8 to 10 centimeters. So I was really excited because I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna get to meet my baby soon, which still makes me want to cry. And he's sitting right here. So they checked me. Sadly, I'd only dilated 1 extra centimeter, so I was at 6 centimeters and my cervix was swelling. This is kind of where we had some decisions to make. They were like, okay, your cervix is swelling, which is not great. She checked and she's like, baby's head is coning, but he's not descending into the birth canal. We think it's probably because his head is not in the right position. So he's like not able to actually descend properly. And I started having a lot of pain on my right side and we kept moving me positions and nothing was working. Like I just felt so much pressure and pain on, sorry, not my right side, my left side. And we weren't sure what it was. Sadly, yes. So I was not progressing. I was at 6 centimeters. My cervix was swelling. So they said, we're going to apply ice to the area. We're going to give you Benadryl and we are going to let your body do its thing for like another 3 hours before we check you again. Because if your body doesn't make any more progress past here, this is where we're going to probably start talking about a C-section. I did not want a C-section. My midwife knew I didn't want a C-section. So we were going to do everything in our power to make that not happen. At this point, baby boy was super happy in there. His heart rate was not fluctuating. So we wanted to keep it that way. We wanted to make sure we were being proactive and not reactive. What I really wanted to avoid was needing an emergency C-section because we waited too long to do something. I trusted my care providers. And so we threw one more Hail Mary pass, took the Benadryl, put some ice up there, let me contract. They didn't up the levels of Pitocin just because they thought my body wouldn't be able to handle it and it wouldn't do it any good. So we waited for 3 hours and I did everything in my power during those 3 hours. I was listening to guided hypnobirthing meditations and really focusing on like my breathing and like making my body open up and like visualizing that. So when they checked me again and my body didn't progress any further, I was of course super disappointed. It's not what I wanted. Looking at my midwife and my doula, they both let me know that like I did everything in my power to make it work and they did everything in their power to make it work. And sadly, my body just wasn't on board. So we got the OB in there and my midwife did let me know OBs are notorious for like recommending C-sections, maybe when they don't need to be recommended. She did say, however, I really like this OB and I know if she's recommending you get a C-section, like I can trust her. And then after checking me, they both agreed that it was time to have a C-section. We could have kept trying and like see what my body was doing, but baby boy was really happy in there and his heart rate wasn't fluctuating. So we got to go in for a C-section, not have it be an emergency, not have it be reactive, not have it be like hectic and derail my entire birthing experience. I truly believe that decision that we made saved me from having a very traumatic birth. I would make the same decision again 10 times over. From there, it was crazy to me how quickly, once you decide you are gonna have a C-section, how quickly they move at the hospital. Felt like minutes until I was in the OR. My husband was getting scrubbed up and we were gonna meet our baby. So this is 7:01. Our little boy was born, and that's after having been checked at like 5:30 by the OB. So it moved very, very fast. So I wasn't quite prepared for what the C-section would feel like. I did want to prepare myself for the emotional implications of possibly needing a C-section. I did not prepare myself for what it would feel like, and it feels so weird. You don't feel any pain, but you can still feel them doing everything, which was very weird. I basically had to tell my husband, like, keep looking at me in the eyes because I'm gonna kind of have a panic attack if I think too hard about what they're doing. When they were taking him out, they were pushing on this side. So the pain I was feeling in this side must have been because he was crowded in this side, and they actually had a hard time getting him out of the incision because his shoulders were so broad. Now I know I'm probably gonna get some hate on this because a lot of people don't believe this, that your body won't make a baby that you can't birth. However, I truly believe had I tried to do it vaginally, I probably would have ended up with an emergency C-section because of how large he was. He was 9 pounds, 6 ounces, but his shoulders were extremely broad. And because of the fluids I was being pumped with during labor, since I was so dehydrated, he also was quite plump. All this to say, I'm really happy with the decision we made to have the C-section. I ended up having a very positive birth. I would just recommend that whenever you're in that moment to follow your gut and find care providers that you trust. I know it's a little hard with OBs because you just get the on-call OB, but that's part of the reason why I chose a midwife team. That way I knew I would 100% know the person in the room with me, and I knew that they would advocate for me. But this is also where if you are going with an OB, you could get a doula because they could also advocate on your behalf in the moment. So today I am 12 days postpartum. Baby boy is sleeping in his bassinet right here, and he's being so good because he has to be fed soon. So I'm sure any second he will wake up screaming like a banshee. So we are gonna wrap this video up, but I just want to say thank you so much for watching, you guys. If you have any questions at all about my birth story, drop them in the comments. I might do another video in the near future about C-section recovery because I think that is also very asked about subject. And while I'm obviously not an expert, this is the first C-section I'm ever recovering from. I do have a few things that work for me that I can maybe share with you guys. So please subscribe to my channel so you don't miss anything else. Thank you so much for watching, and make sure to follow me on TikTok as well because I document a ton of my birth journey, my postpartum journey, and just like general life stuff on there. Thank you guys so much for watching. Bye.